Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you. I've been asked a few times to give my opinion of the Opinel collar lock knives, and I've always been kind of reluctant to do it. I only own two of them, and there's a reason why I only own two of them. But because so many people have asked, I've decided I will go ahead and give you my opinion of the knives, both the quality of the knives and my own personal thoughts on the knife. Now, first off, I only own two. I own this one with the beechwood handle with the little fish designs on it. These are burned into the beechwood handle. You can see the collar lock, and this, as you can see on here, is a number 8. And this is basically your typical Opinel number 8 knife with the inox blade. So it's a Sandvik still stainless steel blade. And back here is a number 2 slimline. I'm sorry, a number 10 slimline. You can see number 10 right there. And then I don't know what the F stands for. Oh, for fillet probably, because this is supposed to be a fillet blade. Now, let me explain the difference between a number 8 and a number 10. Basically, I don't know if anyone has ever really talked about this. What they mean by number 10 is, if you see here, the blade is essentially 10 centimeters long. On the number 8, guess what? The blade is just a shy bit over 8 centimeters. And so that's basically what they mean by the number 8 or the number 10. And I'm assuming that's what happens with all the other ones. So if you've got something like a number 12, then the knife blade is going to be 12 centimeters long, or somewhere between 12 and 13 centimeters long. So, and if you got a 14, then it's going to be 14 centimeters long, and a number 7, I guess, would be 7. I don't know what numbers they have. But that's the impression I have of what the number stands for, is how many centimeters long the blade is, or the approximate length of the blade in centimeters. And so you need to do a little bit of math if you're in America. The easy thing to remember is 10 centimeters is basically 4 inches. So if something were 5 centimeters, it would be, guess, 2 inches, so on and so forth. So figure it out that way. The length of the handle is usually going to be typical with knives, folding knives. If your blade length is about 4 inches, the handle length is going to be about 5 inches. If the blade length is around 3 inches, then the handle length will be about 4 inches or so. Okay, this is about a 3¼ inch blade, so the handle length is about 4¼ inches. That's the way you'll usually be able to figure out the length. And as this one's got a 4-inch blade, then it's about 5 inches long, about the size of your 5-inch toothpicks. This is supposed to be a fillet blade, and I suppose it is. It does have some decent enough flex, but the thing is I like other fillet knives better. And I think the reason is this collar lock, you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it. And while I can turn it with one hand, it's not the easiest thing to turn with one hand. This one's interesting compared to this one. The two collar locks are different on the two knives. And I guess it'll eventually break in, but I really don't care that much for the collar lock. And then the blade, I have to rock it all the way around. There's no snap to it because it's a friction folder. And the same thing with opening it. I gotta rock it all the way around. And I basically would prefer to have just a regular old slip joint. It's nice that you have the collar lock, but there's all sorts of other locks. It didn't lock because it's so stiff. There's all sorts of other locking mechanisms on knives, and this is not one of my favorites. It just isn't. Build-wise and quality-wise, Opinel makes an excellent friction folder. I don't have any arguments with that. It has the same problem that so many other ones have. I actually do feel the gap here, the channel that the blade drops in. I feel it more than I will feel on a regular knife, on a regular slip joint. I do not know why, but the channel here does not bother my hand nearly as much as the channel here does. I do not know why. It might be psychological, but I feel it more. I've actually done some sanding on this to try and make it less obvious, but it still bugs my hand. And to be fair, the same thing with the Okapis. The little channel here kind of annoys me. I guess I would get used to it over time, but basically when I'm gripping it, if I'm gripping it tight, it feels like it's kind of pinching me. I do not have that happen when I'm using a regular old slip joint. So that's one of the thoughts I have on it. Now, the ring lock on these are decent enough to me, or the channel lock, or whatever you collar lock, whatever you want to call it. It's good enough. It works. I mean, it's an ingenious design. It's been around for hundreds of years, and it's worked for hundreds of years. So there's a reason why Opinel is still around and still in business and making lots of knives, because a lot of people like these knives, which is great. I'm glad. I don't want to see any knife company go out of business. This one is a little bit different. Notice the top here, the way it's bent. This one, I like this one a little bit more at first, because I can turn it this way and it'll lock. I can turn it this way and it will lock. But then when I go to close it, sometimes I gotta really sit there and play around and get it lined up perfectly. Otherwise it will not close. On this one, only one way you can turn it. It turns that way, it locks. You go this way, it hits the edge of the blade and it stops, and you have to close it at that point. Well, you don't have to close it, but you know that you are ready to close it at that point. Because this one allows you to turn it either way, you have to fidget around to get this collar lock in the right place to close the blade. And so why do I have two if I'm not too crazy about the design? I bought them both at the same time. This one because it's got the fish on there, and I thought, all right, I'll get a number 8 because of the fish. But then I saw this, and I said, I want a fillet knife, so I'll go ahead and pick up the Opinel fillet knife. Is it a good fillet knife? I don't know. I've never filleted a fish with it. It probably is. The blade seems to have some good flex on it. It's Sandvik steel, which is basically the same shape, same steel that you will find in a in like your Rapala fillet knives, and I use those all the time. So I'm sure the steel is good enough. It's a little stiff in my feeling, but it's still not bad. It's I think it would make a decent enough fillet knife. I'm sure there's people out there who have used it as a fillet knife who will tell you if it's good or not. I have not used it. I probably never will use it. I've got other fillet knives that I'd rather use than this one. Am I happy to have both of these knives in my collection? Yes, I am. Mainly because they're interesting examples of a collar lock knife. Opinels are probably the most famous collar lock knife in the world, and because of that, for a person who collects all sorts of patterns and all sorts of different knives, I really needed to have some in my collection. This one is using Babinga, or African rosewood, which is a really good solid wood, great for around water and stuff. Rot, not a problem. Very strong, very sturdy, and this is their typical beech wood that they use, and I like it. I mean, it looks nice. It's just not the type of knife that I see myself carrying anytime soon. Will my mind change? Maybe, but probably not. When I was picking these up, I was debating on getting the Opinel mushroom knife, because I also like collecting mushroom knives. If I ever get another Opinel, that will probably be what I get. But at this point in my life, I don't even see me doing that, because I'm just not that impressed with the collar lock. I think that's going to be something that is the main selling point for this knife. I know lots of people who love it and swear by it. To me, um, it just it's just another gimmick, and so it's not something I need several of. But I am glad to have two of them, and I'm sure they cut great. There are many people who have done excellent reviews of these and using them and everything and are very happy with them. I will link to a few of those because I think you deserve to hear reviews by people who actually buy the knife, use the knife, and like the knife. I bought the knife, I don't use the knife, and I'm not really that crazy about the knives. But still, they're in my collection, and these two will probably stay in my collection unless I find somebody who's crazy about Opinel knives, in the family and really wants one, in which case I'll probably toss them both of them. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the Opinel collar lock knives. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who really love them, and I might hear some grief from people about them, but for me, they're just kind of meh. They're okay, but they're not something that I'm going to be writing home about. Oh well, there's my thoughts. Take them, leave them, throw them up in the air, piss on them, do whatever you want. That's my opinion of the Opinel collar locks. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.